Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest aliens and UFOs video. Alright, let's go ahead and let's continue the wonderful book UFO Sightings by Alan Baker. Once again, going into the very last chapter, chapter 12, and this will be part 2. This is called the conclusion of the book itself. And previously we were talking about some information associated with the theories of how UFOs can travel and go faster than the speed of light, how it would take something beyond the technology that we have now in order to do so, because having the energy spent would far outweigh than the production. So it was going into some theories about how that works. The rest of this part will continue with that, and it'll delve into another theory about them, in this case those aliens, potentially not being aliens. So let's see what it says there. So without further ado, let's start part 2 in this case, and then at the very end, I'd love to hear again what your own thoughts and comments are. There should be maybe 1 or 2 more parts after this, and then that'll wrap up the whole book itself. So let's go ahead and let's start part 2 here. Here's what it says. If a way could somehow be found to translate the matter of a starship into tachyons, it could then travel faster than light. Indeed, it wouldn't have much choice. Of course, this may well be impossible, since presumably its rest mass would also have to be converted to an imaginary number, which would result in the starship becoming an unphysical entity. Finally, there is the old favorite of science fiction, the space warp. Recent speculation has centered on the idea that since gravity warps space-time, objects rest on the surface of the Earth because they are trapped at the bottom of its gravity well. It might be possible to construct a gravity amplifier. Installed in a spacecraft, a sufficiently powerful amplifier could be pointed ahead of the ship and switched on, resulting in the contraction of space-time in the direction of travel. In this way, a distance of many light years might be squeezed into a distance of a few miles. As it happens, this is a technique allegedly used by the alien spacecraft currently under inspection at the S4 test site in Nevada, at least according to Bob Lazar. If he is telling the truth, we might be a lot closer to building such ships for ourselves than physicists suspect. Another possible method of travel through warp space-time involves the use of stargates, the postulated corridors through hyperspace which can be entered by certain types of black holes. As the reader may well know, a black hole is a region of infinitely warped space-time, the result of a sufficiently massive star that has reached the end of its life and has collapsed in of itself. When this happens, the collapse continues until the dead star's gravity is so great that it escapes velocity, that its escape velocity exceeds that of light. In other words, even light itself plunges into the star, never to be seen again. So deep is the gravity well around the black hole that it could conceivably punch right through hyperspace and form a wormhole connecting the entrance with another region in the universe, or perhaps another region in time. Some physicists suggest that if these wormholes exist, they possibly have a very small diameter, perhaps as little as a few Planck lengths. The Planck length, named after the great German physicist Max Planck, is the smallest unit of distance that can be meaningfully described. It is a mind-boggling 10 to the negative 35 meters, or 1 over a 1 followed by 35 zeros. This has led to further speculation that in the distant future, we might discover a way to inject some form of exotic matter into such wormholes, widening and stabilizing them in order to permit transit by our spacecraft. This kind of engineering is, of course, a long way off. Physicists have yet to solve the equations that would conclusively prove the very existence of wormholes and stargates, let alone solving the problem of how to travel through them. Even so, it can be seen that there are a number of tenuous possibilities for the future of interstellar flight. Indeed, there are doubtless myriad additional possibilities that have not yet even occurred to physicists. And the possibility remains that the scientific discoveries surely awaiting us in our own future might be written in the history books of a distant planet. Next segment is called They Are Probably Not Aliens. By far the most widely accepted hypothesis for the origin of genuine UFOs holds that they are interstellar space vessels piloted by scientific survey teams from another planet or planets. Ironically, this most prevalent of hypotheses is also acknowledged by the skeptics, who, as mentioned in the previous section, use it to refute the notion that UFOs represent a genuine, unexplained phenomenon. The vast majority of ufologists accept the extraterrestrial hypothesis as the one which most successfully accounts for the massive evidence in the form of photographs, physical traces, and eyewitness testimony that has been accumulated over the years. But is this position justified? Does this evidence really point convincingly to an origin on another planet? In short, if they are there, are they coming here? We may as well begin with the physical appearance of these aliens. Although, as noted earlier in this book, not all aliens possess a humanoid form, it is described far more often than not in the UFO literature. This is even more true in the late 1990s, in which the ubiquitous Greys seem to have claimed exclusive visiting rights over our planet. Even when other types of beings are described, they are almost invariably associated with the Greys in some way. So just how feasible is it that a being originating on another planet should look so similar to ourselves? Don't let the huge craniums and giant black eyes fool you. Such differences are negligible in terms of extraterrestrial evolution. In order to address this equation, we must first take a look at the Earth itself. Our home planet has a sidereal period of revolution about the Sun of 365.26 days. Its mean distance from the parent star being 92.96 million miles. Its axial rotation period is 23 hours, 56.07 minutes, and its average radius is 3,959 miles. It has a mass of 13.17 times 10 to the 26 pounds. Its orbit occupies the so-called habitable zone about the sun. Any further away and it would become a frozen wasteland like Mars. Any closer and the accumulation of greenhouse gases would have heated the surface, resulting in the hellish conditions observed on Venus. The Earth is also blessed with the presence of a large natural satellite, very large in fact compared with the satellites of other planets in the solar system. Its movement about the Earth causes tides, and its monthly orbital period may even influence the menstrual cycle of human females. The Earth's axis is inclined at approximately 23.5 degrees to the vertical. This is called the obliquity of the ecliptic and gives rise to the seasons. However, there is a slight variation in this angular. A circular wobble that takes the axis from 22.1 degrees to 24.5 degrees over a cycle of 41,000 years. The fact that the obliquity of the ecliptic has a variation of just 2.4 degrees is due to the presence of the moon's steadying gravitational influence. Without it, the obliquity of the ecliptic would have been much more severe. The seasons would have alternated between the unbearably hot and the intolerably frigid with great rapidity. It can thus be seen that the present life-bearing properties of our planet have been fine-tuned to an incredible degree. If any of the above attributes had been missing or at all different, life on Earth would certainly not have evolved the way it has, and perhaps we would not even have evolved at all. We are the products of 3 billion years of evolution, which in turn depended not only on the factors outlined above, but on countless others, including the radiation produced by the sun, the intensity of the Earth's gravitational field, and the means by which food is chemically produced through photosynthesis on Earth. It is therefore virtually unthinkable that an intelligent being from another planet with conditions differently widening from those on Earth would be as similar to ourselves as aliens are reported to be. By the same token, it is statistically very unlikely indeed that there are any other planets out there that are identical to the Earth and thus capable of producing similar life forms to human beings. And even if there were, their inhabitants would still almost certainly look nothing like us, since our own evolution is the results of tens of millions of random genetic mutations driven by the specific radiation output of our sun, mutations that cannot be duplicated exactly, no matter how similar conditions were elsewhere. Let us now turn to the phenomenon of alien abduction. That something both disturbing and unexplained is occurring in many of these cases can, I think, no longer be seriously denied. Indeed, the phenomenon may well have an intelligent, non-human origin, but is it an extraterrestrial origin? The typical abduction scenario involves the victim's removals to an enclosed space in which a series of medical procedures are conducted, including the removal of biological materials such as skin, blood, sperm, and ova. The general consensus among the majority of abduction researchers is that the aliens are doing this in order to create a new race of hybrid beings to bolster their own deteriorating genetic stock, to repopulate a doomed Earth, or to populate some other planet with a new variation of the human species. However, the methods they are allegedly employing to achieve this goal are simply not consistent with the postulated activities of such a hugely advanced culture. There is simply no need to use a traumatic method as the scooping out of a lump or flesh to secure a piece of human genetic material. As Jacques Vallée has stated more than once, human medical science, as it stands today, could secure such material without recourse to such radical measures. A single drop of blood, which could be taken without leaving any physical marks, would yield all the genetic material the aliens could need. In fact, they wouldn't even need to abduct a single human being. They could raid the blood or sperm bank of any decent research hospital and then come away with all the material they would need. Another often reported element of the abduction experience involves the impregnation of human females who are allegedly forced to carry human/alien hybrid fetuses for a period of several weeks before they are abducted once again and the fetuses are removed. These women frequently report being taken to a room containing many transparent fluid-filled vessels inside which float the hybrid fetuses that have been taken from them. Once again, not only is this incredibly cruel, it is also unnecessary if we accept that these aliens are utilizing a technology perhaps thousands of years in advance of our own. We have been using in vitro fertilization techniques for many years, and it seems logical to assume that the day will come when the biological womb becomes redundant. There seems to be no reason for such an allegedly advanced technology to require human females for this purpose. That they may well be abducting people all over the world, but it seems very unlikely they are doing it for the reasons many ufologists assume. And with that, let's go ahead and let's stop. This will be part 2 of chapter 12, the chapter called Conclusion from the book UFO Sightings by Alan Baker. Let's go ahead and let's talk about that here. And first part was concluding the information on the theory of travel. Interesting stuff. The idea that basically it uses gravity. What about that? A gravity amplifier, something that theorizes if we are staying here on Earth because of gravity, and that way we don't float about everywhere, maybe gravity can be used to almost make something from a distant point seem much closer in a much quicker time. There's an interesting thing too. And how about that? Bob Lazar, he was mentioned on there too. He was saying that the S4 test site that he apparently worked at there in Nevada, that's what the aliens were using. And then they brought up the word Stargates. Anyone love that movie? I've seen that movie once. I don't remember much about it, but it does seem like there's that idea too of using black holes, something that would cause you to step in and then you're suddenly someplace else. So if that's the case, if that's what it involves, let's see if maybe that comes about sometime in the future. I like the idea that those wormholes exist already, even though they're infinitely small. Maybe there's something there out there too. And then the next part goes into the theory of them not being aliens. I've heard about this before. It does make you give pause. Why would something, in this case involving these aliens, these grays, look similar to us? I mean, of all the billions and billions of galaxies out there with trillions of stars and planets, why would they look like us all of a sudden? Could they be us? Could they be us in the future? Could they be revisiting? Could they be analyzing us? Are they humans basically in the far future? that are coming up and somehow traveling in the past and then seeing us. I've heard about that theory before. It does give you pause, the infinitesimal logic and odds that that could be, and yet there it is. And so it does make one wonder when it comes to that. I like the long output that the chapter went into as well, and it was stating that Earth went through so much evolution, and it is a specific way because of the way it's placed in the galaxy. Any more away from the sun or any more closer to the sun, and we wouldn't be here. And even then, it took millions of years of evolution to get to we are today. And yet somehow, all those single identifiable things that could not be done anywhere else, anywhere that we know of at least, and yet these aliens look almost like us. That's a pretty good theory when it comes to that. But I'll leave it there. Let me know what you guys think. Are the aliens us? Is it something else completely different? Let me know. All right, everybody. Thanks again as always. Take care.